At exactly 0317 hours on March 4, 2026, the Strait of Hormuz stopped being a waterway. It became a kill zone. The USS Eisenhower, CVN-69, 104,000 tons of nuclear-powered American Resolve, was holding station at the southern mouth of the strait. Its flight deck bristled with fully armed FA-18F Super Hornets and EA-18G Growlers cycling through continuous combat air patrols. Operation Epic Fury was now in its fifth day. The joint U.S.-Israeli airstrike campaign had systematically dismantled Iran's Shahab-3 and Ahmad ballistic missile production complexes in Fordo, Parchin, and southeastern Tehran. The pressure on the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy, the IRGCN, had reached a breaking point. But the breaking point was not in Tehran's command centers. It was in the fractured psyche of one man, Rear Admiral Hossein Zarif Darvishi, commander of the IRGCN Strait of Hormuz Tactical Group, age 54, recipient of the Order of the Islamic Revolution, and as of 0248 hours on March 4, 2026, a man no longer receiving orders from anyone. The succession crisis engulfing Tehran following the death of Supreme Leader Khamenei had fractured the IRGC command structure. While moderate factions inside the Assembly of Experts were quietly negotiating a de-escalation channel with the U.S. Fifth Fleet through Omani intermediaries, Admiral Zarif Darvishi had concluded that Iran's only path to survival was a blow so decisive and so catastrophic that the United States would be forced to withdraw from the region entirely. He had been planning this contingency for 6 months, and at 0317 hours, without authorization from any surviving member of the Supreme National Security Council, he activated it. The Americans called it a ghost attack. What happened next would be something no military strategy could have predicted. The first indication came not from a radar screen, but from a sound. Deep beneath the thermocline layer at 230 meters, the passive towed array sonar aboard the USS Virginia, SSN 774, running silent station-keeping duty at the eastern approach to the strait, picked up a transient acoustic event, a low-frequency metallic click, then another. The unmistakable sound signature of torpedo tube flood valves opening in sequence on an Iranian Kilo class submarine, the Yunus. NATO designation, Improved Kilo 636.3. Acquired from Russia in 2016, dubbed the Black Widow by Fifth Fleet Intelligence for the phosphorescent stripe painted along its bow. At the same time, the E-2D Hawkeye early warning aircraft orbiting at 23,000 feet picked up 14 sudden AIS transponder shutoffs occurring simultaneously across the northern Gulf. 14 vessels, tankers, and general cargo ships registered under Panamanian, Comoran, and Liberian flags, all going electronically dark in a synchronized pattern spanning a 40-kilometer arc. On the Link 16 Tactical Data Network, the Tactical Action Officer aboard the USS Arleigh Burke, DDG-51, saw what no training simulation had ever replicated: 14 green dots dissolving into nothing on her display, replaced by a single chilling annotation from the combat system: multiple AIS losses, possible coordinated denial event. It was not a coincidence. It was the opening movement of a choreographed nightmare. Admiral Zarif Darvishi's plan was an evolution of the doctrine the IRGCN had quietly developed since 2019, the Mehvar concept, or Axis doctrine. The idea was devastating in its simplicity. You do not attack an American carrier strike group with missiles alone. You build a physical cage around it first, then you fire. The 14 dark vessels were not merchant ships. They were converted IRGCN logistics hulls, reinforced steel barges carrying pre-positioned Noor anti-ship missiles in concealed launchers beneath retractable deck panels. Below their waterline sat dense loads of EM-52 rising mines. The mines were the deadliest part. Rocket-propelled, acoustically triggered, capable of rising from 200 meters depth to intercept a target within 4.2 seconds. 6 of the vessels had already reached their seeding coordinates, forming a 22-kilometer minefield across the Eisenhower's only deep-water egress route through the Western Channel. At the same time, the Black Widow Kilo had completed its approach. It was now 0321 hours, 4 minutes into the trap. The submarine was sitting at 210 meters, 9 nautical miles northwest of the Eisenhower's current position, bow tube doors open, two set 65 ME heavyweight torpedoes armed and guidance wires unspooled. Its targeting data was being fed by an external source. A Russian-flagged tanker called the Akademik Volkov, holding station 14 nautical miles north of the carrier group. On the surface, the Akademik Volkov appeared to be a crude oil tanker registered out of Vladivostok. Beneath its hull plates, behind a concealed bulkhead in the engine room, was a Krasukha 4 broadband electronic warfare system running at partial power, quietly feeding precise positional data to the Kilo via encrypted acoustic underwater data link. Russia was not firing a single shot, but Russia was holding the trigger. The Kilo's captain, Commander Mehdi Borgian, checked his firing solution one final time. The USS Eisenhower was a fixed point on his screen, painted in amber. The range was perfect. The angle was perfect. His orders from Admiral Zarif Darvishi were explicit. Fire both tubes on command, then dive to maximum depth and run south at flank speed. The political fallout would be handled by others. Tonight, history would be made. At 03:22 hours, the order was transmitted. If you think the US Navy can stop this in time, comment 1 below. Because what happens next will decide the fate of 5,000 sailors and possibly the entire Middle East. The moment the USS Virginia's sonar supervisor called out, "Torpedo in the water, bearing 318, 2 weapons, active homing, launch alert," the Combat Information Center of the Eisenhower erupted. But Captain Rachel Moreno, a 22-year veteran and former FA-18F Super Hornet pilot, had already begun moving. Not reacting. Moving. Because 3 hours earlier, at midnight, the NSA Signals Intelligence Cell embedded aboard the Eisenhower had intercepted a burst transmission from an acoustic underwater repeater buoy, an encrypted packet broadcast on 163.5 Hz, an IRGCN command frequency. The message had taken 47 minutes to partially decode. What it revealed was not a complete plan, but it was enough. Captain Moreno had quietly placed the strike group at condition 1SQ at 01:15 hours, full anti-submarine warfare posture, without broadcasting the alert externally. The Spy 6V1 AMDR radar on the Burke-class destroyers was already in its most sensitive passive listening mode, antennas canted 3 degrees below horizon to catch sea-skimming threats. The Mk-41 vertical launch system cells had been pre-selected for SM-2 Block 3C intercept, with RUM-139 ASROC anti-submarine rockets designated to cells 1 through 4. The Eisenhower was not a sitting duck, it was a coiled spring. At 03:23 hours, the USS Arleigh Burke executed a hard starboard maneuver at 33 knots, physically interposing itself between the incoming torpedo track and the carrier's port beam. A bodyguard maneuver that naval analysts had classified as theoretically impossible at this bearing range. Simultaneously, the Burke's countermeasure launchers fired a full spread of SLQ-25C Nixie torpedo decoys into the wake. The decoys emitted a powerful acoustic signature 3 times more intense than the Eisenhower's own propulsion noise, designed to seduce the SET-65's wake-homing guidance algorithm. Seconds later, the first torpedo broke lock on the carrier and curved violently toward the loudest sound source, the Nixie canister trailing 600 meters behind the Burke. The warhead detonated in open water. The shockwave staggered the destroyer's crew but left her hull intact. The second torpedo was smarter. Commander Borgian had loaded it with upgraded guidance software provided by the Akademik Volkov's intelligence cell, an override routine that filtered decoy signatures. The weapon maintained tracking on the Eisenhower's primary acoustic signature and continued closing. The distance closed. 4,800 meters, 4,200, 3,600. At that moment, the USS Virginia, running silent and undetected at 280 meters, executed the most audacious maneuver in the submarine's operational history. Her commanding officer, Commander David Okafor, fired a single Mk-48 Mod 7 ADCAP heavyweight torpedo not at the incoming Iranian weapon, but at a coordinate 15 meters in front of its predicted nose position. The detonation created a massive hydrostatic pressure column that physically deflected the torpedo's guidance fins by 4 degrees, sending it spiraling off course and detonating 220 meters short of the Eisenhower's hull. The shockwave cracked 3 welding seams in the carrier's non-critical aft machinery spaces. The ship shuddered, but she sailed on. Commander Borgian had 1 second to register what had happened before the Virginia turned its bow toward the Kilo and fired a targeting-only acoustic pulse. A single ping that hit the Black Widow's steel hull like a sledgehammer. The message was unmistakable. "We are here. We have you. Surrender or die." But the torpedo duel was a distraction. At 03:27 hours, the E-2D Hawkeye's operator picked up a thermal bloom at sea level. 16 separate heat signatures erupting from the previously dark vessels in the northern arc. The EM-52 mine deployment was beginning. At the same time, the Noor missile launchers on 6 of the vessels were erecting. Container lids blowing off in a synchronized sequence, fire control radars activating across the formation. The trap was fully sprung. The Eisenhower had 11 minutes before the western egress channel was completely mined and the missile salvo was in the air. Captain Moreno made the call in 4 seconds. She ordered a simultaneous multi-domain strike package, a decision that had never been attempted in a real-world carrier strike group engagement. From the Eisenhower's flight deck, 4 FA-18F Super Hornets launched in pairs on catapults 1 and 3, full afterburner, carrying AGM-84H SLAM ER standoff missiles with GPS and electro-optical dual guidance. Their targets, the 6 mine-deploying vessels. Simultaneously, 2 EA-18G Growlers rose from catapults 2 and 4, their ALQ-99 jamming pods already active. Their mission was not electronic attack. Not yet. Their mission was to find the Akademik Volkov. The EA-18G Growlers had been tasked with a secondary signals intelligence collection run. Within 4 minutes of launch, the ALQ-99 frequency analysis suite locked onto the Krasukha 4 emission signature radiating from the tanker. A distinctive 8.5 GHz pulse that matched the profile in the signals intelligence library, tagged to the Akademik Volkov 6 weeks earlier in the Black Sea. The Russian ship was no longer a tanker. It was a confirmed hostile electronic warfare platform providing fire control support to a combat operation against U.S. Navy assets. The tactical decision reached Captain Moreno's console 38 seconds later. She had authority under 5th Fleet Standing Rules of Engagement Annex F to engage vessels providing direct fire control support to attacking forces, even if they flew a neutral flag. She authorized kinetic action. The EA-18G Growler pilot designated the Akademik Volkov with a precision AGM-88 EAAR-GM anti-radiation missile programmed for the EW emitter. The weapon was not fired to sink the ship. It was aimed at the Krasukha 4 antenna housing on the stern superstructure. At 03:31 hours, the missile detonated against the antenna array. The explosion demolished the EW suite, killed its operators, and instantaneously cut the acoustic data link to the Kilo. Commander Borgian's fire control screen went black. He was blind. He was alone. And below him, the USS Virginia was holding a perfect firing solution. He surfaced. His hands were up before the conning tower finished clearing the waves. With the Kilo neutralized and the Akademik Volkov's EW capability destroyed, the IRGCN Shadow Fleet lost its coordination backbone. Without the Krasukha 4's encrypted targeting relay, the mine deployment sequence on 4 of the 6 forward vessels aborted automatically. A software failsafe built into the EM-52 launch system required a continuous encrypted handshake to authorize deployment. 2 vessels had already dropped their mines, but 2 was not enough to close the channel. From 03:32 to 03:34 hours, the 4 FA-18F Super Hornets executed their strike runs on the mine-deploying vessels, firing AGM-84 H-SLAM ER missiles at the deck-mounted launch rails. 3 direct hits. 1 miss. The pilot aborted to avoid a humanitarian vessel that had drifted into the target zone. The 3 struck vessels lost their mine cargoes in catastrophic secondary explosions that detonated the EM-52 warheads prematurely deep in the vessel's holds. The detonation sent 200-meter water plumes into the night sky, visible from the Eisenhower's bridge. At 03:35 hours, the Noor missile launchers on the 6 surface vessels, now aware the operation had been compromised, fired in a disorganized salvo. Not the coordinated 14-missile swarm Admiral Zarif Darvishi had planned. Only 7 missiles launched before the remaining vessels began emergency scuttling to prevent capture. The Eisenhower's integrated air and missile defense architecture handled 7 Noors without difficulty. 3 were engaged by SM-2 Block 3C fired from the Berk. 2 were decoyed by chaff and Nulka active decoys. 1 lost radar lock due to the EA-18G Growler jamming barrage. The 7th was destroyed by the Eisenhower's own Mk-15 Phalanx close-in weapon system at 900 meters range. A burst of 20mm tungsten at 4,500 rounds per minute that shredded the missile's seeker head and detonated it 40 meters above the flight deck. Hot shrapnel rained across the deck. 3 sailors sustained burns. The ship herself was unscratched. At 0336 hours, exactly 19 minutes and 42 seconds after the first torpedo entered the water, the USS Eisenhower's captain transmitted a single coded message to 5th Fleet. Headquarters, Strait secure. All threats neutralized, awaiting orders. The silence that fell over the Strait of Hormuz at 0337 hours on March 4, 2026, was not the silence of victory. It was the silence of something irreversible. Admiral Zarif Darvishi was captured at 0819 hours by SEAL Team 6, extracted from a hardened IRGCN command barge 12 nautical miles off Qasem Island. He offered no resistance. He had already sent his final message to what remained of the Tehran command structure. 7 words in encrypted Farsi. The martyrs will be remembered. The strait is ours. The Akademik Volkov incident triggered the most severe diplomatic crisis between Washington and Moscow since the 2022 invasion of Ukraine. Russia denied all knowledge of the vessel's EW mission, claiming the Krasukha 4 system was decommissioned equipment being transported for disposal. The denial convinced no one. NSA intercepts of Russian Ministry of Defense communications confirming the Akademik Volkov's mission were quietly shared with NATO allies within 72 hours. 3 Russian diplomatic staff were expelled from Washington within the week. The Kilo submarine UNIS was escorted to international waters under armed surveillance and then released. A deliberate American decision. Sinking it would have made martyrs. Releasing it, humiliated, its captain standing on the conning tower with hands raised while a Virginia-class submarine circled below him like an apex predator that sent a different message entirely. But the mine channel was not completely clear. 2 EM-52 mines deployed by the early vessels remained undetected on the seafloor, dormant, their acoustic triggers armed. They would not be found for 11 days. In that time, vessel traffic through the Strait of Hormuz, already down 90% from Iranian drone operations, dropped to 0. The global oil market reacted instantly. Brent crude hit $189 per barrel. 3 European governments declared energy emergencies. The war was not over. Iran's rogue IRGCN factions, emboldened rather than deterred by Zarif Darvishi's failure, had already begun moving a 2nd Kilo-class submarine, the Noor, through the Gulf of Oman under a false acoustic profile. It was disguised using deception techniques borrowed directly from analyzing the Virginia's response tactics during the Strait engagement. Someone inside the 5th Fleet intelligence cycle was feeding them data. The threat had evolved. And the Eisenhower's Combat Information Center crew, cleaning shrapnel off the flight deck with flashlights at 0400 hours, already knew they had not fought the last battle. They had only survived the first one. The Strait of Hormuz is not a waterway anymore. It is a test. And the question the world must now answer is this. If a rogue admiral acting without orders can come within 900 meters of sinking an American supercarrier, what happens the next time someone gives the order? What do you think? Should the US have sunk the Kilo and the Akademik Volkov, or was strategic restraint the right call? Leave your analysis in the comments. And if you want to understand exactly how EM-52 rising mines work, and why the US Navy has no current 100% countermeasure, the classified briefing is our next video. Subscribe and turn on notifications. You will not want to miss it.